let's see, Saturday, and I think we could all use a big exhale this morning in the midst of this very intense time. I was waking up this morning and I was thinking about the fact that it is Independence Day. I have to actually, first of all, say that I am not an American, and so I don't have as much connection to this day, but as someone who immigrated to this country, I have a curiosity about it. And part of that curiosity is really thinking about, what does independence really mean? And what does it really mean to have freedom? And what does that look like both outside of us and inside of us? And how does a mindfulness practice contribute to that? Really, at the foundation of this practice are teachings of freedom, of essential freedom, and what it really means to have a mind that is free. And that's a mind that is free from greed, from hatred, and from delusion. And when we're practicing mindfulness, we both have really immediate benefits of feeling more relaxed and present, in tune with our emotions and what is happening both inside and outside of us. And ultimately, as we practice, what we're cultivating is this kind of freedom. It's this kind of freedom to see exactly the nature of our mind, how it works, where we get hooked, where we're stuck in clinging or in aversion or in being checked out. And as we develop that, we can look around the world and equally have greater clarity of sight of where is there real freedom and where is there greed, hatred, and delusion. And certainly it doesn't take much to look around both inside of ourselves and outside and see those things, both subtle and overt. And a lot of this practice is actually tuning into where it begins at a very subtle level. Sometimes we can think like, oh no, it's all good. Like recently we've been having these conversations about racial justice in this country and really all over the world. And where people are like, no, I'm not racist, or it's all good. And yet, if we start inquiring at these very subtle levels, if we start noticing our mind or the intricacies of things we otherwise didn't notice, more gets revealed. And that is one of the powers of this practice, is to notice what before we did not notice, both inside of ourselves and around ourselves. And as we do that, we develop a greater capacity to respond with resonance, which ultimately is responding with love. It might look like many different things in that kind of response, but this is what we develop a greater power to have and to do in the world when we can actually see these underlying workings of things, starting with our own mind. And so I thought that's what we could practice with today. And I want to invite you, if you are online, if you've just joined us or you're just popping on for a moment even, if you want to put in the chat where you are streaming in from, and just say hi and what your name is if you use a different handle on IG, and if you want to share what your name is. Of course, I love knowing that. I feel personally connected to you even though I'm just talking to a screen. And like I said, my name's Justine Dawson. I've been practicing mindfulness and insight meditation for probably about 24 years now. And 13 years ago, I was trained as a teacher by Jack Kornfield, which was a really powerful, deep training in these things I'm exactly talking about. A lot of time looking at the nature of my mind and how it works and where it serves me and where it doesn't, and where it serves the world and where it doesn't. And Inside LA is a community of mindfulness practitioners, explorers, teachers here in Los Angeles, but clearly online, and really investigating these same things, and how can we have a deeper, more fulfilling, more honest life through the practice of mindfulness. So, hi, Stephanie from Los Altos. Mariella, hi. and Schulier, the K. Okay, hi, and you're and Raymond Tochley. I would need to ask you how to pronounce that. Tochley Martin from LA. Great to meet you. Sorry if I got your name wrong. I probably did. And Mariella's in Santa Barbara this weekend. Hi. Wonderful. Well, it's great to have a little time with you this morning to really root in and have an opportunity to do this kind of reflection of what does independence mean to you? What does freedom mean to you? What does it mean to have sovereignty and real freedom inside of yourself? And then what does it look like to bring that out into the world? And so if you're just joining us, like I mentioned at the very top of the chat, I tagged the link for Insight LA, a link to our classes. We have online classes every day, all day, as well as to my Instagram and my website if you want to learn more about my teachings. And yeah, so this is an inquiry we can even do right now, is what does freedom mean to you? What does having a sovereign mind that's truly independent, it's independent of greed, hatred, and delusion, do you have a sense of what that's like? This morning I posted on my Instagram story this little cartoon. I've seen it before. It always makes me laugh. And it shows these two, probably ancient Indian yogis. One's clearly coming down from the mountaintop, and the other's on his way up, maybe to their cave where they're going to meditate. And there's a little sign that says truth that way, like kind of going to the cave, right, where he might find some truth. And the old yogi who's coming from there just looks so battered. His hair is all fried and his face looks like completely frazzled. And I thought, yeah, that can be it. The truth is liberating, but first of all, it can feel like quite a doozy. As Joseph Goldstein, who was one of my teachers, said, waking up is rarely good news. He might even have said, waking up is never good news. Because when we wake up and we start to see what is actually happening, it can be very painful. Again, I mentioned earlier, this can happen for people around racial justice. They're like, no, there's no problem. And then you start looking around and seeing, and for some people, it can provoke a lot of frustration and anger, denial, all these kinds of things. I've been seeing that in some people this week because it's like, wow, it is hard to see the truth, and it's hard to see things that you might have been implicit in or things that you didn't see before. And this is true for just every working of our mind. When we start looking at it, it can feel quite frazzling. I'm not even sure if that's a word. What would be? It can leave you feeling quite frazzled. Maybe you've had that experience where you sit down to meditate and you just think, I am a terrible meditator. I can't meditate because my mind's too crazy. Well, you're having the first insight of insight meditation, which is just how wild the mind is, just how caught in craving and aversion and checking out in delusion. That is the mind that most of us starts with. And so it's not a problem. In fact, you're actually getting some insight. So today, what we could do is a little bit of practice of simply starting by noticing. And awareness is really the first step to this freedom, is seeing what is it that we're working with. What is the state of my mind? Just like we're doing right now in our country, we're looking around and it's like taking this great inventory and seeing, wow, there are a lot of things that, have been here for a long time that haven't been addressed. And how do we actually start by acknowledging that? And so we can do the same things with ourselves. What are all of the patterns and ways? We just start by seeing. And in meditation, we don't leap immediately to changing because first of all, we really want to get to know it. We actually really want to see it and recognize it and open to it and feel it. Sometimes it can feel quite painful. Sometimes it can feel quite freeing to simply see things as they are. So this morning, or wherever you are, maybe it's this afternoon or the evening, let's take a little bit of time to do that. Let's take a little bit of time and simply notice the state of our mind and what's in there. So I'm going to invite you, wherever you are, to take a moment to pause. You could be doing other things outside, whatever. Just take a moment and pause. And if it's comfortable for you, close your eyes. If closing your eyes isn't comfortable, you can let them softly gaze down towards the ground, not having a hard fixed vision on anything, but let that be soft so your attention can come inwards. And as my voice quiets down, become aware of what you're noticing. This is the first step. Simply be aware of what you're aware of. Is it sounds? Maybe sensation in the body? It could be thought or emotion that suddenly floods in. Most likely you'll feel your breath. So let's start there. Let's bring some awareness to the breath that's always there. Becoming aware of the feeling of our inhalation and the felt sense of the exhalation. Doing that a few more times. This is really our tether, our root. It's as we ground in here, we can see the mind play out around us. You can think of the breath like a buoy in the ocean, and you're staying as it rises and falls, and the ocean plays out all around it. There's waves of thoughts and feelings and sensations, but the buoy is right there, and it's a place where we can find our center. And from that center, we can notice all those other things. So feeling it like that, your breath rising like a buoy in the ocean, expanding, and then releasing, settling, relaxing, and then noticing how it rises again, feeling the sensation through your body of the inhale, and then feeling the sensation of the exhale. Now, all around that breath, like I said, you might notice the storms like an ocean. So simply notice that. The breath is still there, it's still happening. You can become aware that it's still there, despite the storm. But then notice, oh, what is the storm? If it's thoughts, you can acknowledge that thoughts are there. And then come back to the breath. If there's strong sensation or other sounds, you can acknowledge those. And then come back to the breath. We're cultivating freedom of mind that is able to see and acknowledge what is there and to not get hooked by it. And if we get hooked, to acknowledge that that has happened and not get hooked by the fact that we're hooked. So staying at the center with this buoy of the breath, Inhaling, expanding and rising. Exhaling, softening, sinking. Continuing to feel that. And then becoming aware of what is happening around it. If there's strong sounds, there's a lot of birds outside my window, becoming aware of the birds. And then if they fade or disappear, coming back to the breath. If there's strong sensation in your body, opening to that sensation, acknowledging it's there, being willing to feel it. Heat, tightness, pressure, vibration. Opening to fully feel it. And noticing what happens as you do. Bringing your curiosity to whatever's there. And then if it fades or disappears, coming back to that anchor of the breath. You might be aware of strong emotion or really persistent thoughts. That's good too. You can simply become aware of those. Oh, strong thoughts are happening. Intense emotion is present. Noticing that. And noticing, is my mind chasing after it? Is my mind engaging and arguing? Is it trying to push it away with aversion? Or is it getting completely subsumed, completely lost in delusion? And noticing that. In fact, right now you can notice, what is the state of my mind in this moment? Is it free or is it caught? And even noticing it's caught is also freedom. Awareness is the beginning of insight. So if you feel lost or overwhelmed, completely immersed in thought, notice that right now. Oh, my mind is racing. I'm immersed in thought. I'm hooked. Right there, you're free. And then come back to the breath. Expanding, rising, and the inhale, feeling it through your body. Softening, relaxing on the exhale. Again, like I said, like the buoy on the ocean, it's your tether, it's your anchor point. And from here, all experience can swirl, it can arise, and you can notice it from this place of your anchor. You can notice all of the storms arising, all of the experiences of the ocean of experience. And you can be aware of those too. And as they pass through, fade away, come back to the breath. right now, what is the state of my mind right now? Simply noticing. And noticing that amidst the swirl of experience, the breath is still happening. We can come back and anchor in. Use it as the place of refuge and the place from which we can see experience as it is. And we can notice our patterns. Where are we craving? Where are we hooked? Where are we rejecting and aversive, trying to get rid of something? And where do we just check out, completely lost in delusion? You can see right from here where your mind is not free. And as you see that, that is a moment of freedom. So thank you for practicing with me today. I'm curious how that was for you. If you want to share in the chat box how your experience was, if you noticed anything, if you noticed a moment of where you got caught, where there wasn't freedom, of where there was like that greed, that craving, or that aversion and pushing away, or that delusion where you're just overwhelmed and checked out. Pretty much any meditation, you're going to have all three of those experiences repeatedly, because that is us getting to know and see the nature of our mind. And then in each moment we're aware of it, that is some freedom. That is some freedom right there. And you can begin to see that in yourself and in the world around you. You look around the world and you can see, where are we caught? In greed, hatred, and delusion. And then where are there moments of freedom? So, hi, Jenny. Got the heart eyes. Good. I'd love to know how it was for you. And Mariella says, amazing. Thank you, Mariella. Physics and coffee. You noticed aversion, the pushing away of sounds. It's so great. As soon as we can see that impulse in our mind, experience rises up and it's uncomfortable and we want to get away from it. We want to push it away. Right? So right there, we get to see so much about ourselves. Can we open? Can we be present with experience and learn from it? And from there, can we open to what is true? This is, right now, sounds is the truth. Outside my window, there is a hammer, there are some birds, there's a little traffic, that's the truth of this moment. And when I can open to it, when I can see it, I have some freedom. So, I'm not sure how to say your name because it's long, but you say, that was awesome, Justine. Thank you so much. So thank you. If you want to write in what your name is, then I will also know that. And Coffee and Physics says, what a wonderful meditation. Thank you. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope today that you actually have some more time to be able to contemplate for you, what does freedom really mean? And what would it look like to have a mind that has more freedom? And therefore a mind that has the ability to respond to the world, to really see it as it is, to open to it, and to respond. And so, Michael, thank you. And then Mariella says, when you notice the pain of the world, what do you do with it? After being with it, how do you take action? Wow, well, this is such a big question, right? And what I would say there is that, well, first of all, in our meditation, we learn to fully open and feel it. Because one of the things that happens is sometimes we see something and we want to fix it right away, right? We want to leap to I got to change this. And it might be inside of ourselves. We want to rescue and change things, or outside of ourselves. We want to fix something. I mean, let me tell you, I had an experience this week where I was talking to kind of an associate, someone I've known for a long time, and they started insinuating things that weren't in alignment with my values. around racial justice and things like this, and I saw immediately how triggered I got, how I wanted to change them and fix them. And like I got into this intense conversation where what I noticed is I was coming from a thing of aversion. I had a lot of aversion to what they were saying. I really wanted to change it. And it's not that that impulse was totally wrong, but it didn't help me create more connection and less polarity in the world. Let's say it that way. And so first of all, there's a willingness to open to our own discomfort. Like, oh, let me feel it. Let me feel the pain of all of this. And then once I've done that, once I've been willing and become open to really see the nuance of the truth of things, then what I would say is that most likely you will feel an appropriate response. And that is going to be different for each person because it's going to be based on what is your karma, what do you have to offer, what might you be moved to do, and that can look so different. And so then again, what you might likely feel is like you might feel something rise up inside, and to become aware of that. As we meditate, what we start to notice is the difference between thinking type thoughts where we're trying to rationalize and work it out, and like our mind is working very hard, versus what I would call more of an insightful or an intuitive thought that rises up and it just sees clearly. It's not hooked. It's not motivated by delusion or greed or hatred. It's moved by wisdom. And that's going to look different for each of us. But I would love to hear like what are some moments that people have when they notice that, and how to take action, because absolutely, that the result of this practice is that we can take action that is rooted in compassion, which is ultimately having clarity, having clarity so we can respond with this fierce, wise love, and be able to express that in a way that's resonant. And of course, this is a messy process. Like I was saying, we try, and then sometimes it makes a mess, and then we have to try something different. But I feel that's so personal. And I'm curious, Mariella, if you have an answer for yourself, like what you found to be true. Yeah, I'd love to hear it if you have any thoughts on that. But really what I'd say is listen. And then also sometimes we respond, and then we have to adjust. We respond, like I said, with this person in this conversation I had. I responded and I was like, well, I was reactive there. And certainly it's not that my feelings were so wrong. It was looking at how do I keep learning from my experience so I can attune and have more and more of a positive response. So Mariella says, thank you. That gave clarity. I was I think that probably says hooked in the changing and aversion now that you mentioned it. Yeah, don't we all? So yeah, thank you everyone so much for joining me. We're going to wrap up now, but I really invite you today and this weekend to contemplate freedom. And what does it mean to have a freedom and awareness to see the truth of things, and to